most men aren't ready for what's coming. And I don't just mean economically. I don't just mean politically or technologically. I mean internally, relationally. Because the world is changing so much faster than any of us can metabolize. We have AI accelerating, and war and corruption, and all of it just seems to be going faster and getting bigger. But we now also have endless ways to avoid ourselves. We have endless content and stimulation and scrolling. We have a place to disappear and escape our own bodies right at our fingertips. And a lot of us are already doing exactly this. And it's not because we're weak or we're broken, but it's because it's what we learned to do. We learned to override our feelings and to mistrust that sensitivity that is begging for our attention. And a lot of men are starting to recognize this, and they're starting to enter into the men's workspace, and they are being drawn toward teachers with messages that are built on judging and overpowering the parts of ourselves we consider weak, judging and overpowering women, and genuinely disconnecting from our gentler, more feeling selves. So many men are claiming to be teachers out there, and they're teaching us to worship grit without any sense of reverence for ourselves. These are people who call compassion weakness. And these messages are often telling men to dominate ourselves and the people around us into freedom. But you cannot shame yourself into more presence. You can't bully yourself into peace, and you can't heal the wounds causing your struggles by deepening the exact patterns of self-abuse that created them. Right? The knot at the center of so many people's lives is emotional stagnation and repression. It is the loss of a loving relationship with ourselves that is leaking into our relationships with the people around us. And it is really appealing to believe that we can muscle our way into solving the problems that causes. Because the work we need to do to become better partners and fathers and humans doesn't end by making enough money or building the perfect body or becoming more secure in your masculinity. No matter what you do to grow, you are not invulnerable. So today on the podcast, I'm going to talk about what we as men are walking into. Because the only way out of life's greatest lessons is through them. And today we're going to talk about what that looks like. This is Reclaiming the Gentleman. I'm Dave Lashansky. So recently I've started to see way more people claiming to be polarity coaches or men's work coaches that are doing a great disservice to men and relationships. And I'll start off by saying I don't believe that polarity or men's coaching are bad things. I am a men's coach, and I think these are wonderful things from the right teachers. But with some of these people hiding behind buzzwords like polarity, which is a powerful framework based on ancient universal principles that are being warped and misrepresented, what these people are doing when they warp and misrepresent things like polarity is really helping men build a better mask, right? A mask of better discipline, a more muscular mask, a strategic mask, right? All in all, a more masculine looking mask, but still very much a mask. And this matters a lot. Because what happens is when we hear about these universal principles, we are really drawn to the core ideas of things like polarity. right? These frameworks of yin and yang and masculinity and femininity speak to a part of our intuition that feels like truth, a truth that we understand innately. But the truths we understand intuitively are being hijacked by rigid structures and frameworks that are claiming to define one very narrow avenue that all men and all women must follow to achieve harmony, right? If you're a man, you do this. If you're a woman, you do this. If you're a man and you do this, you're not actually a man, right? And when we're seeking answers, when we recognize that we have work to do on ourselves or in our relationships and we feel an imbalance of power, sexual desire, or love, it's painful, right? We feel really lost. And when we're in that space, when we're lost and we're struggling, sometimes the only thing we have to go off of is that feeling of like, oh, this seems true. Let me try this out. And that is the danger of these teachings about these narrow right ways to be a man or to be a woman or to be a person. Because while I do believe in the principles of polarity, while I do believe that men cultivating their masculinity is a beautiful, crucial gift to this world in this moment, that there is a need to cultivate discipline and tend to our bodies and our physical abilities, that there is a need to honor the feminine in us and around us by service and devotion, the way that this is going to play out in your relationship is going to be as unique as you are, as unique as your relationship is. And the responsibilities of you and your partner to grow together are going to call on your presence in so many different ways. And so my purpose for creating this episode is that I'm watching more and more men try to use shame and judgment to manufacture a kind of masculinity that feels real, but that's just a mask. Right? I'm watching men decide what is acceptable for them to say and do or feel based on exactly the same kinds of insecurities that fed our self-abandonment as children. The same insecurities that has defined generations of men growing up, right? The idea that vulnerability is weakness, that needing support makes you lesser or feminine, that gentleness disqualifies your strength, and that what makes you a man can be defined by some rigid external code, instead of through the honesty of your own lived experience as a man. And this matters so much to me because the self-abandonment that I see being promoted in so many spaces where modern men's work is being taught is really just fragility in disguise. Right? It is the frightened little boy on the playground who learned that he had to toughen up and shut down and perform in order to belong. And that little boy does not need your domination, right? He does not need to be shamed into becoming a man, into growing up, right? He needs to be met. He needs to be understood. He needs to be loved deeply enough that the man you are today and want to be tomorrow finally stops running away from him and embraces him. Because that's where the real strength begins, right? Not in perfect control of your image and your emotions, not in dominance or rigidity, not in becoming unfeeling, but actually in the ability to stay with yourself and tell the truth about what's happening inside of you. Real strength is learning how to stop abandoning yourself when life gets hard. That's what growth is. And it's what gives you depth and steadiness. It's what makes you safe and trustworthy. It is what powers your presence and what draws people to you. Because when you learn to see and accept and love the parts of you that you once feared were too much or not enough, or somehow, some way just plain bad. You stop being ruled by them. That is mastery. And so if you want to be ready for what's coming, if you want to be able to handle whatever waves of uncertainty are overcoming most of us, most of our population is panicking, right? Stop asking what looks strong and look for what is true for you instead, right? Don't ask what makes you seem more masculine. Ask what helps you come home to yourself. Because just because something sounds powerful doesn't mean that it's going to heal you, right? A man becomes trustworthy and strong not by rejecting the tender and ashamed and frightened parts of himself, but by learning to care for them, to see them. The path forward for all of us has nothing to do with self-rejection. I promise you this. The path toward that place we want to go, toward better connections and more presence, more compassion, more love in this world is about honesty. Honesty about what's here inside of us, what is real inside of you. And that requires you to cultivate courage, to cultivate the means to love more deeply and more wholly and with more of you. To love more deeply all of you. Masculinity at its best does not cut you off from that. It actually roots you more fully in it. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Reclaiming the Gentle Man. I have a new workshop coming up this month. It is called The Map to Pain-Free Conflict, and I'm so excited to share it with you. You will be the first to hear about it if you sign up at my website, davelashansky.com. You can also DM me on Instagram to learn more about it. Really excited to share how to have conflict without the pain, how to grow toward deep, meaningful, transformational conflict without losing yourself in it, how to stay grounded when she's not. It's a workshop for men, and I'd love to see you or a man in your life there. The best way you can support me in making this show and continuing to offer these free workshops is to rate and share this podcast with the people in your life. And if you're getting something out of it, write me a note. I love hearing from people who are listening. Wishing you a beautiful day or night, wherever this finds you. I'll be back in a week.